Hey, this is Gabe. Welcome back to another video. In a previous video, we showed you how we made this cigar redemption pen. So this was version 1. In this video, we're going to make what I call version 2. So it's pretty much based along the same thing as this one, but this one here was a bespoke fountain pen. We're not going to do the bespoke fountain pen, but the version 2 is going to be how I made the cross here instead. So at the drill press, we're going to make our scallops first. And this is Bethlehem olive wood. And I have some lines here already marked on center. And this is set up to where it's just outside of center, like we did on our last pen that we did. So we'll go ahead and cut those out, putting our stop block in there. Lock that in place. And you can see by that line right there, I'm just inside of that. So I'm about less than a 1/16 of an inch inside, and then on the outside it'll give me the same thing when I flip it over to do it. And then also on the back, let me release that real quick. I have an X here so I know that when I come back to this function that I know what orientation the pen is supposed to be in here, so it doesn't get offset the wrong way there. I'm going to make a test cut first. Okay, that's pretty much too close on center, so I'm going to just shimmy it over just a little bit. Now still a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that is discarded. Now previously I already cut my Bloodwood out, so we don't have to go through this whole process. All right, we have that glued up now. I'm just going to let that cure, and then this is the back, and then we'll do the front next. Okay, that's glued, dried, and now trimmed up. Now we'll do the opposite side here. Make sure the X is on the back of the jig. And that's got about the right amount of gap that I want, close to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing like we did before. Since this is the lower, this is the upper, we're going to use the offcut that we just took off, which is this piece right here, which went on like that. I want the top half right here. I'm going to cut this in two. The bottom half is going to be red, or excuse me, we're going to use red veneers up here and black veneers here. And then we're going to do Bloodwood and Bethlehem olive wood 50-50. And we'll come back when that's done. Now I wanted to come back here real quick and then just show you this real quick here. We've got the top side over here, and you can see how that grain pattern lines up with the red veneers. I glued this part first, and then the second part with the Bloodwood. And then now we'll just go ahead and cut that off right here, trim it, and then we'll come right back. Okay, that's been cut and trimmed. Now we're going to do our third and fourth cut, which is going to be left and right of this over here. It'll look just like this. but on both sides, and then I'll come back after both of those cuts are done. Okay, we got those scallops put in, sanded down. You see this is the cut line here. This is going to be the upper, the lower. I haven't defined the length yet for the lower and cut that off yet, but the next step will be to do the chevrons, and then we'll put the cross in afterwards. So we'll go ahead and start the chevrons next. Okay, now let's take a look at the previous pin that we made, and you can see that the chevrons right here. We have Purpleheart, Bloodwood, and then the Bethlehem olive wood with veneers in between. So that's what we have right here. So we're just going to stack these like that, in that order. Now, two different methods that I like to use. With these, you can just clamp them together with some blocks on the outside and then flood everything with thin CA. Or if you don't want to do that, like in the case what I did with these, I just used regular wood glue. So that's what I'm going to do here with this. I'm just using regular cheap Elmer's glue. It works great, so you don't have to worry about it not being effective. When you give that a squeeze, you'll see all the glue will spread automatically. And then if you were using thin CA, I use an acrylic blank for wood glue, but if you're using thin CA, put some packing tape over it, because the thin CA will stick to the acrylic, or medium CA. But if you use packing tape, it won't stick on the acrylic. I just use that as a straight edge. Make sure everything is pushed down, and then we'll clamp that in place. Okay, that's glued up, dried, and we're ready to trim that up. Normally I use the table saw, but my table saw is full of stuff right now. So switching gears, and I'm going to use my bandsaw. This is my Grizzly G0513 17-inch bandsaw. I have a 3/4 inch Laguna Tools carbide skip tooth resaw blade on here. This is an amazing blade. If you've ever had a chance to get a carbide blade like this for your bandsaw, it's really nice. Makes cutting, ripping, resawing so much easier. So the first thing we need to do is we need to clean up that edge so we get a nice flat edge all the way around on both sides. Okay, now my jig is pretty tore up, so I haven't had a chance to make a new one yet, and the hold downs usually push down this way when I want this. So if I push down here, it rocks it a little bit because this is uneven. So instead I'm just going to opt and hold it with my fingers against like this, So the pressure from me holding it is going to be against this part here, not down here like on a table saw. So you can see how good that looks. So I need 4 of those, probably about a 1/2 inch long, about 3/8 actually, will do it. I'm just going to eyeball those. Just because I don't like getting my fingers anywhere near a blade, I'm going to use a spring clamp to hold that there in place like that. And I think that will look good. So I just need 3 more of those, and I think we're in business. Okay, so that's what we're going for right there. So we'll get 2 more of those going. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue these together. I'm going to use this spring clamp, corner clamp. Just line up the white on the inside and the other on top. The Bethlehem olive wood on top. Make sure you get your lines lined up. Put a little dab of this. And see how those line up pretty good. I'm not going to use any accelerator. I don't want any bubbles at all from any of this stuff. Oops. That's the downside of that. Put it on there and then we'll just go ahead and readjust it and get it in place. That's why I should have had gloves on in the first place. That looks pretty good, so we'll just let that cure and we'll do the same thing for the other side. Okay, so let's take a look at our pen again and see what we have here. And you can see that this is the orientation that I have drawn on here. This is the lower, this is the upper. And it looks a little bit longer over here than it does right here right now, but when this gets turned down, this will shrink up on the, as it gets turned, the diameter will shrink it. So anyway, and I left this a little bit longer also. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut these diagonals before I cut this in half. And we'll just use that here, excuse me, here on this. And then when we cut it in half, we use this 90 section on the jig. So just like on the table saw jig, I'm going to line this up pretty close to the edge. Now that is almost right there. I'm going to pull it back just a little bit to that cut line because I'd rather have a little bit more room than not enough after my initial cut. So we'll see what that looks like. That looks pretty good, so we'll clamp that in place. Okay, now that looks really good, so we'll clamp that in place. I'm going to put my finger right there up against that. And at the end of the jig, I'm just going to put a small piece of scrap and then clamp that right there. Feel that again, make sure that that's good. So I'm going to rotate that. We'll cut the other side off. That looks really good. You know, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half so I can get a more accurate layout of what it looks like from the upper and the lower. Okay, these are cut and they're ready to glue up. I'm just going to put some CA on that, and then we'll just let those glue overnight. Okay, these are glued up and they look pretty good. This is the upper, this is the lower, and then the next thing is we are just going to drill these out using the 25/64, since this is going to be for a cigar pen. Okay, at the lathe I'm using a 4-jaw chuck, and I have a 25/64 inch drill bit here in the Jacob's chuck, and I'm going to drill starting on the chevron side, pushing inwards where the scallops are, because if you do it this way, when you're drilling out, this has a tendency to blow out. So I want to push it inward and then drill it out like that. Okay, let's lock that in place. And I like the way that lines up with the center line all the way around. Slow speed. Okay, that drilled out really nice. And then we'll just do the same thing with the other one. Okay, those are drilled out, and I relieve those edges all the way around while that's being glued up. And then we'll get ready to turn next time we come back. Okay, so I sort of messed up on this one here. I did things out of sequence. I should have put the cross in here first before I drilled this out and put the brass in. So you can still do it this way. It just complicates how deep you can go. Normally when I put this in, when I do the Purpleheart Cross, I usually go about halfway through. So now I'm going to have to just judge it by where I feel this carbide bit hit the brass, and then that's where I'm going to have to stop. So I drew out my cross from the middle. This is going to be the bottom of the cross here. This is the top, and then this is the side, where left and right, where I wanted to stop on that edge. So that's what it will look like when we're finished. At the drill press, I am using my X and Y mill, and this is a Shop Fox mill. Let me zoom out so you can see what this looks like. And that is the same mill that I used on my lathe for turning it into a somewhat of a metal lathe for rounding acrylic blanks. So this is specifically what it's made for. I know that this right here isn't exactly good for milling, but being that this is a drill press mill made specifically for the drill press, I'm not putting too much lateral pressure on this right here, being that I'm only using it for pen blanks. So it's not like I'm cutting anything significant. Be aware that this is a 1/8 inch carbide blade. Let me pull that out so you can see what that looks like. So this is a 1/8 inch carbide blade, and it's a router bit blade. And I got this at Rockler. Oh no, I'm sorry, I got this at Sears. It's a Craftsman. And I've had this thing for probably 10 or more years. Now the drill press doesn't move fast enough. This says max speed is 34,000 RPM. The drill press max speed, this one is 3,100 RPM. So it's significantly slower than a router, but it does work quite well. So I'm not really worried about that. And if you have any doubts, this is a practice piece that I was working with earlier, trying to make sure I get everything lined up right and familiarizing myself with this off camera because I haven't used this before here in this capacity. So one of the cool features about this X and Y mill is that it has a thumb screw here, and then it has another one on the other side down here. And if you turn this one and tighten it up, that will keep this from turning left and right. It'll keep that in a straight line. And the same thing with the bottom. If you tighten this one up, this one will keep this one from moving back and forth, so that when you're using it, it will always cut straight. Okay, so that took several passes, but I got a little bit into the brass. Not too much, but that's okay. It'll still work out fine. Now I want to cut a piece of Purple Heart, put that in here first before I cut the cross piece, because you'll get tear out. Okay, so I cut a piece of Purple Heart and then rounded that over, and you can see it fits in there pretty tight. So I'm just going to glue that up, and then after that's glued up, we'll trim that off, and then we'll come back for the cross piece. Okay, that's glued in. Now we're going to do the cross piece. This thumb screw right here in the front, this is loosened up so I can move this side to side. This is the other thumb screw that I talked about earlier. This one is tightened up, and then that will keep this from moving front and backwards. So I'm roughly 1/4 of an inch out from here to here, and then that's where I want that to be. And then I'm going to make my hole, then go down to the other side, make another hole, and then I'll meet in the middle. measure that out and be sure I'm okay. And that looks right to me. So I'm just going to move that over and then re-drill straight down. Okay, that's what that looks like. I think I'm just going to clean it up a little bit more just to be on the safe side. Not quite deep enough. Okay, I just rounded over the edges of some Purple Heart right there to put in there. Just glue that in and then sand that off and we'll come right back. Okay, so there we go. That is in there. And then I cleaned up the inside with a 23/64 so it's nice and smooth. And 23/64 is the inside diameter of that cigar pen brass tube. And let's compare that with the other cigar pen that we made. Slightly different, but I think that will turn out very nice. So the next step is just to turn this. Okay, we finally got to the point to where we are ready to turn. Everything looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and get this started on a high speed. Okay, I wanted to stop and take a look real quick and see how everything looks. Make sure there's no cracks or splits. Just a couple little gaps here where that glue was at and whatnot, but nothing major. So we'll go ahead and turn it down a little bit more. Then we'll stop and look again for any more cracks. And if we see some, we'll put some CA on there and some accelerator, and then we'll move on. And if you haven't seen this, this is a homemade chip deflector. I have a video for it I did years ago. And anyway, that's what that is. Works pretty good so you don't have to wear so many chips. That's just held on with a rare earth magnet. And works really good for pin turning. And that's just shaped after a clear spoon. Nothing technical. And attached with some... I use hot melt glue on some clear plastic and then molded that into a rare earth magnet. Going to use some thin CA to fill any voids and cracks. I'll just let that set for a few minutes. Okay, now that that CA is dried, now that the CA is dry using the accelerator, I'm just going to do some real light cuts. This time I'm switching to carbide. Okay, I want to make this area right here a little bit thinner and taper this down a little bit more so it's not so heavy on the bottom. Okay, we're going to use thin CA, several coats of that with accelerator. That looks really good. Feels nice and smooth too, so we'll just go ahead and assemble that next. We'll go and assemble the upper part first. Let's see, I guess if I'm right-handed, put that in the middle like that. Looks good. Okay, this is the lower. This is for the transmission. And I don't think I can fit in there. There, just barely fit. Okay, and then that is why I wanted to make it a little bit thinner on the bottom, because I like this ridge to show a little bit more. So we'll go ahead and put those pieces together now. Okay, so here we are. Now that looks pretty good. The light isn't good, but the pen is. I like the way it came out. It looks really good and feels really good. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked version 2. Have a good day. Hey, this is Gabriel Castro. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. You can click on the link right here and subscribe. You can watch a video series right here or the latest video right here.